welcome to the return of the Geeking Out podcast. I am the Athletic Geek, and joining me as the new fixture in this new rebrand of the Geeking Out podcast is...
Organoid Zero, baby. Woo!
Yes, we are ready. I took a big break from YouTube. I needed the break. And I learned trying to set up and get back into it how long a break is. It's like taking a break from like physical fitness or dance or like anything that requires like skills that you must fine tune repeatedly over the course of your life. Getting out of it is it's like starting back at zero. So either way, we are doing a new format with Organoid Zero here, be coming at you hopefully every week. Unlike most podcasters, we have jobs. We have real jobs. So
the unfortunate parts of life.
Yes. So we'll be coming at you every week with different topics of discussion. We have a lot of big stuff planned. But we're open to any suggestions that you may have. But we're going to get started, and we're going to come right out the gate with pretty much one of the easier topics that you can do. We're gonna start slow. We're gonna start slow. Our favorite superhero movies. Now we are limiting these to live action theatrical releases. Maybe a small spoiler for other topics in the future. But yeah, we are going to talk about our favorite superhero movies right here this week on the Geeking Out podcast. And I'm going to let Organoid Zero start out with the first one. I think I know which one this is going to be because I feel like this is just like, other than a select few, you're going to have a lot of people have this one on there. So we're starting easy. We're starting easy.
Now, this is going to be the weird part because we talked about this beforehand. This is one where we're going to slightly differ.
Really?
I, unlike most people, out of the trilogy of movies that I feel we're going to talk about, prefer Begins to The Dark Knight Rises.
You're not alone in that. You're not alone in preferring Begins to Dark Knight and Dark Knight Rises. I know a lot of people that do prefer Begins. Mm-hmm. And this is kind of my, like me preferring Dark Knight is kind of my basic, I have the basic take there, much in fandom culture, especially people like us and a lot of other people that consume podcasts and social media talk of that, there's a lot of, I prefer this because, I read this and it's, I read this book and I like seeing this in that book and this which is fine. I love that, as long as you're not an asshole. I love that kind of thing.
Absolutely. Have opinions. For sure.
But as long as you're not toxic, you're fine in my book. Mm-hmm. But Dark Knight is like the epitome of my, like, everyone loves it. So, why not? And for me, the part of the reason why I love it so much, it's not perfect. I'm not going to say, well, I mean, it's not perfect to a Batman fan.
Yes.
If that makes sense.
I heard someone describe it to me, and this made a shockingly large amount of sense. Batman Begins is a Batman movie made by Christopher Nolan. The Dark Knight and The Dark Knight Rises is a Christopher Nolan movie that happens to have Batman characters.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, that's a great way of describing it. Like I think Heath Ledger's, performance in the movie was immaculate. He deserved the Oscar for it. But, anytime, like, he's not my favorite Joker. Christian Bale is not my favorite Batman. Not even like even taking the voices of Mark Hamill and Kevin Conroy out of it, which are my favorite Joker and Batman. Like, Christian Bale's not even my favorite live action Batman. Heath Ledger's not even my favorite live action Joker. No. But this is still how do I say this? Batman or Dark Knight Rises rather, it's legitimized. It legitimized fandom. It made it so, not that it should matter, but it made it so liking comic book movies, liking superheroes, liking Batman. Yes, the MCU was around. Yes, there was Spider-Man and the X-Men, and it wasn't completely unheard of to be fans of that. But Dark Knight is what essentially made it like legitimized, where it's like, hey, you can like this, and it's considered art. It's considered cinema by people who normally, kind of have the side eye at superheroes.
Yeah. Yeah.
This kind of made it so more people would open their mind to these sorts of characters, to where it's like, oh, hey, it's not just men in tights. It's not just, the the geeky kids, which there's nothing wrong with that, but it's not just the geeky kids, going like, ooh, the Batman's powers are, it's not like those sort of people. Like, you can be into it and still like, okay, you're seeing, in a way, it made it okay for everyone to,
It's not so much. It's kind of, I kind of what you're saying. It's you could like it, but still be on the back burner, not fully engulfed as what everyone else is. You could appreciate it as
yes.
a movie that had superheroes in it and not a superhero movie.
And
And that kind of what in Europe, what I think you're trying to say partially for how movies were made. You and me both lived through the era where the Fantastic Fours and the earlier '03 era movies
not that
were,
everything
where
was bad, like
no,
Spider-Man was good, the X-Men were good, Blade was good,
yeah, some of those had the idea of Spider-Man, or I should say Fantastic Four movie, and then the plot was made second.
yes,
And the way where I say where they're kind of like Christopher Nolan movies, but with Batman characters in them, he kind of made the plot he wanted for the movie, and then figured out what Batman characters would fit best. And
yeah,
that's kind of what happened with superhero movies going forward for a good chunk, where they went, if we reverse engineer what the plot we want and then put characters in that fit, it doesn't seem as crammed in.
yes.
Yeah.
But like, the kind of also piggybacking off of that, it also made it so where like it showed anybody could be a nerd. Any like that
Mm-hmm.
in the MCU was like anybody can be into this thing. You start seeing, pro football players
Yeah.
wearing Batman Under Armour underneath their shoulder pads. You start seeing MMA fighter. Granted, a lot of them, were kind of growing up in that era. So like, but you start seeing more of the, you know, avenues that normally wouldn't be like, like where you felt like there was a big divide. The divide get significantly smaller.
Oh yeah.
Of course, you're always going to have like people in that, like, like, why, like, this is football. Why are you wearing Batman? This is, you know,
This is MMA. This is real fighting.
this is, yeah, like you're always going to have those sorts of people in everything.
Yeah.
But, um, you know, what, it made liking that sort of thing, like, it made it okay to be popular. And unless you're like a deep hipster where you got to be like counterculture to everything, and nothing mainstream is, Batman was so much better when it was just, me and my comic books. Unless you're like one of
Gatekeeping.
those, yeah, unless you're a super gatekeeper,
Yeah.
this was good for fandom,
Yes.
and you know the plot was good. It made like if Batman were real, this would be what would happen. You would be
Yeah.
seeing all these things. It would be like a terrorist, like the Joker. It would you would see like him. You would see him trying to go after public figures.
Mm-hmm.
And in my opinion, it was like the right balance of that. So because you saw him like going after the like trying to assassinate, you know judges and lawyers and police chiefs and commissioners and what
Turn
have
Harvey
you.
Dent to make him look evil.
Yeah,
Show
turn
everybody just like him.
yeah. But then, like, to me, it didn't go so far overboard like they did with the Riddler, in the Batman movie, where it's kind of like a little too like, okay, like it was the biggest happy medium between over the top superhero action and really deep into real life, if that makes
Mm-hmm.
sense.
Yeah, I get what you're saying. Yeah, it definitely had it cemented the kind of switch for what people wanted Gotham to kind of
Mhm.
look like too, and that was kind of the hard swing of where they made it very long Halloweeny in the Batman,
Yeah.
which I did not mind. I felt like I needed to take a shower after I got out of that movie, which I'm
I
very okay with.
I see. Like to me, like it wasn't bad. I just, this is a whole. We're getting way off topic. Like the Batman movie, it like seemed like it was way. It was just too much. I did the though my fiance described it as it's a good movie, but it really wanted to suck its own dick. It's kind of the way she described it when we went to go see the movie. Was like like it was really trying to like go like look at the level we're thinking on, and that's I could go into major detail about what I didn't like about that movie, but this is what we liked. This is the what we liked
But like,
episode.
yeah, and it it very much got the idea that a lot of people like everyone has got the idea that like, and it's gotten that way more now that Gotham has always been Chicago.
Yeah.
It didn't used to be that way.
No.
It always used to be New York, and everyone's like, it never was. I'm like, did we forget in Batman Forever where they literally crash a plane into Lady Liberty? Did we
Yeah.
forget about that part?
Yeah.
but,
But I like it being Chicago, Gotham being
yeah,
Chicago more because like you know I've gone to Chicago. I've gone to wrestling events in you know at the United Center,
yeah,
which is like that Wrigley Field and Soldier Field are like the the stadiums you think of, and then it's funny because like much like Gotham, you see this big stadium and you see all the nice areas around the stadium, and you see other than Wrigley. I'm never going to go to Wrigley because fuck Wrigley, but that's probably the safest one. But like
yeah.
like but the United Center, you see all the nice things around it. You see you know, it looks like when you see all that on TV, you're like, wow, this is a bustling, booming, cool city. And then you don't realize, like, if you just go 4 blocks that way past the United Center,
Not so much.
you're going to end up like Bruce Wayne, or
Yeah.
Bruce Wayne's parents. Um,
You're in the nice section that they show on the television. You're not in
yeah,
that corner that doesn't get seen
yeah,
because the reporters get killed.
yeah, and just like the Wayne family leaving the movie theater, it's just like if you just keep going, if you cut down the wrong alleyway, leaving a Bulls game, and
Yeah.
that's what they made Gotham like that. When you see Chicago on TV, you see the skyline, and you're like, oh, that's a beautiful skyline. They're like, look at this business that's here. Look at this. Look at this. Corporation that operates out of Chicago. Look at this. Look at that. But then unfortunately, there's also that other part of Chicago where it's like, here's the crime, here's the police corruption that's in Chicago. Here's the you know everything. Here's the police that are involved with the corrupt politicians, or the crime bosses probably aren't what they are in real life, but
I
like
get
that.
what you're saying. The people
Yeah,
that kind of the not exactly gangs, but like the people that are more you don't screw with over there,
yeah.
like protection rackets and
And
things
possibly
like that.
in some cases you could probably say gangs, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, but yeah, like that's the sort of like that is you know that's something that's real,
yeah.
and then that's what they made Gotham. When you'd see like they'd pan Gotham, and this is kind of all the Nolan version. Like, oh hey, here's a nice football stadium, and Gotham's got a really good football team, and here's look at all these businesses, like look, like there's one of the richest men in the world, and he operates out of this city.
Hmm.
Um, those sorts of things are what I like seeing that with Gotham. I mean, not that I don't love the film noir more,
Yeah.
from animated series, or not that I don't find, you know, the uh the Tim Burton
Like the
version of it.
statuesque gothic,
Yes,
really
you know,
gothic
like,
theme.
find not that I don't find that charming, but then again, I also kind of feel like this feels more legitimate. If there really was a Batman, he would be operating in a city like this, not in like this weird gothic town that like people will probably like see something about on the Travel Channel, if there even is a Travel Channel anymore, and go like, oh, that's a cute city, on TV. Like, this feels like a city.
Yes. And it feels like a city that can exist. One of the problems, small side tangent, that I had with, I do not hate BVS and Justice League as much as most people. I will not say that I love them, but one major problem I had was the fact that you had Metropolis right next to Gotham.
Yeah, that's not.
You do not have Superman exist across the river and then not expect some of these problems to still be happening.
Yeah. Yeah. And I said I like BVS. Like, I actually think it was a good, not great movie, but I agree with that. Like they were too close.
Yes.
They were too close. Metropolis is supposed to be like the opposite of Gotham.
Yeah,
crisp, far away and clean, but then like, oh shit, an alien. Oh shit,
Yes.
Oh shit, we don't know we don't know that the man that owns the city is,
exactly.
corrupt. We don't know that Donald Trump
is a nice guy running for mayor. He's the villain. No, he's not. No, he's a nice guy. We all love him.
It's not like it was Donald Trump, like before he actually became a politician. But it's all like, oh, it's just this eccentric billionaire, who is buying stuff up,
Yes, exactly.
But yeah, it's everyone loves that. Everybody's going to want us to talk about that one, but maybe you have one that not everybody thinks of when it comes to favorite comic movies.
And this was the one that popped up first, and it's probably the first superhero comic book movie that I ever watched. The Mask.
Interesting. People forget that that's actually a comic book movie.
It is. Because I'm thinking about this, I'm sitting there and I'm like, my favorite comic book movies, and it's like, it's in the intro for my video reviews on YouTube, but it's one of those things. I'm going to admit, I was a young child, a young, developing boy when I saw it, and Cameron Diaz exists in that movie, so, that's part of it. But it's just, it was wacky, it was zany, the dance numbers and all this other stuff that now, is it as morbid and grotesque as what I figured out really what those comics are like now? No. Those comics are messed up.
And it's actually funny that you mentioned that, because I remember, I'm going to give a shout out to another channel that really got me like really deep into wanting to do stuff like this. The Geekvolution channel with Captain Logan, if you're familiar with that, or if anybody watching this is familiar with that. He did a lot of really good reviews about superhero movies. And I watched his one on The Mask, and like, I was aware that Mask was a comic book in the same way that I was aware that Men in Black was a comic book. Like, I don't know anything about it, but I don't know but I know that it was a comic book, and he was the first one that kind of said like, the comic's a horror comic, like the comic is not fun, but the movie was fun. So you kind of had two different ways of looking at that. Whereas, like, cool, it like made this new interpretation of this character, that had a cartoon. I love the cartoon.
Yeah, people
back
like
in the day
that also happened.
Yeah, I love the cartoon. I had a Mask action figure. I love the movie. I love the cartoon. I love Jim Carrey's interpretation of it. But it's one of those, again, you don't want to be the hipster, that's like, well, actually. But
if he was ever inserted in a death battle, he would win because he's got cartoon powers. I'm like,
yeah,
that is true. He's one of those people you never see brought up in shit because he's busted.
Yeah,
he really is.
But the other thing is, like, I do kind of wonder, and again, as long as they're not assholes about it, what would a fan of the Mask comic, what was going through their, like, if there was a big fan of that comic book, what was going through their mind in, I believe 94 is when that movie came out. I might be mistaken.
I believe it was, because there was a crazy year where he had The Mask, Dumb and Dumber, and
Ace
Ace
Ventura.
Ventura. And
Yes.
all three of them got animated shows made about them.
Yes.
He
Ace
was on.
Ventura. I never saw the Dumb and Dumber, but I love the Ace Ventura
Oh, I
cartoon.
have the Ace Ventura on a DVD set with the movies and stuff. It's fantastic.
Nice.
The Mask comic
Yeah,
debut. Because I want to see when the comic actually started. It started in '87, so realistically,
so there was a lot of time where that comic was going on, probably built up at somewhat of a fan base. It had to have. I wonder what the fans of the Mask comic were thinking, because we didn't have internet and everybody couldn't just spout opinions like, we currently do now. But I wonder what Mask fans were thinking, like, all right, we're getting a Mask movie. Were they like, oh, Jim Carrey, it's a comedy? No. Or were they like, oh, this is fine? What were the people that were fans of the horror comic of the Mask thinking when they would get the Entertainment Tonight news or the Entertainment Weekly news of like, wait a minute, it's Jim Carrey? Wait a minute, it's being done as comedy? Were they okay? Were they nerd raging? What was going on?
I got to imagine that a good amount of them, and I didn't know also that I'm looking at this, that was actually Dark Horse first company created superhero. I didn't know that. According to this thing where I just
we all just learned something today.
But I got to imagine that, again, because it was a horror comic book, I got to wonder if there was an understanding, because it's such a previous time to the nerd baity actually version of stuff, to where it was adults had to be who was reading this, because it's messed up. It is horror. I have to wonder if there was somewhat of an understanding to where they're like, they're not ever gonna show that in a movie, so this is the only thing I'm gonna get. Now there is gonna be some that are mad, but I'm wondering, in that older mindset of adults in the 90s, where they kind of went, oh, it's a movie, this is what they're doing, I'm not as bothered by it, as now as it's become with culture, to where it's more popular to be negative about something than positive.
You say that, but then I remember hearing stories from some coworkers about when the Crow movie was being developed. There was talk of the Crow going in a similar direction, like they're going to play it as comedy. I don't know how true this is, but yeah, like, this was all.
That's hard to picture.
Yeah, like I'd heard, this might not be true. If anybody was deep in that culture at the time, or just knows more about the Crow than I do, maybe you can answer. But like, I remember a coworker of mine saying, I remember when the Crow was in development. I read the Crow comic, that they wanted to play it as comedy. They wanted to get like Michael Jackson to play the Crow and shit like that, and they were going to play it for laughs. And then like James O'Barr's like, no, you're not, I'm not giving you that. So it's kind of, if that is true, I want to make that big disclaimer. If that is true, that's weird. Like where was their rage? Like what was going on with that? So
the Mask movie backlash? Question mark.
See if there was
might help if I put movie in your Google search, idiot. Is the Mask inappropriate? Goodness gracious. What were the criticisms of the Mask movie with Jim Carrey? Oh, these are going to be current. They're not going to be able to find an actual article. But part of me thinks there's honestly going to be some people that were against it. And now this is going to be the weird thing where what was the more messed up comic book? The Crow or the shock horror of some shit that happened in The Mask? Because there's like two very different brands of horror. But I don't. Oh, apparently I'm seeing that critics slam the living shit out of it. The Mask at 25 for its. It was oh boy, slammed the film's astonishingly lazy comedy, but praised Jim Carrey's antic energy.
Well, there you go.
That's okay, but I mean, I obviously don't like it for being accurate, so that's something that's different. But I never would have got this movie that I loved if they didn't base it off The Mask.
Right.
So it's that weird dichotomy of it's not accurate, but I wouldn't have gotten it otherwise.
Yes. And I can respect that,
Yeah, it's weird, but yeah, that's what I had to mention for sure. Because it's like no one ever mentions that as a great comic book movie. Which again, '90s kids growing up are gonna have a little bit of a
Yeah.
different opinion on certain stuff. But yeah, that was one I had to have in there for
And
sure.
you know what? There's times where you can just put the fandom hat on, and you know like the I like this, and then there's the critical thinking hat. You
Yeah.
know, like that's something. You know, I quit doing wrestling videos because you know the culture among uh internet wrestling. You know,
Especially
here
since
for,
AEW started, the tribalism of WCW versus
yes,
that came back in full
yeah,
force.
yeah, you know, I did, and for a lot of my subscribers who watch me weekly talk about wrestling, you know, I mean, if you're watching this, you know, you're getting the inside scoop now. I just got so tired of the tribalism, and to me, like what set me off was this is another tangent, but this is updating
Yeah, go
my
ahead.
viewers. Um, what set me off was it was WrestleMania 40, and I remember like we just had like most people were happy that Cody won. Most people were just like, "Hey, I had fun. I enjoyed that. Like, that was good. I like this." And anybody, and like, there's just so many of these big talking heads that at least on my timeline, everybody's timeline's different. But on my timeline, I saw so many like just pro AEW talking heads like jumping into the conversation. And it's not like they were just like one-time burners. Like these are accounts that have like followers. These are
Mm-hmm.
accounts that talk every day about AEW. These are accounts that talk every day about wrestling. And all of them were just coming in and constantly like, oh hey, this was really cool. Like, wow, you actually thought that was good. Wow, I can't believe you don't appreciate wrestling. Don't you know Will Ospreay is on AEW? Don't you understand that we're getting Will Ospreay and Bryan Danielson, and you think that garbage was good? Okay, I guess you don't understand what good wrestling is. Enjoy your base. And I'm just like, fuck all of you.
Yeah.
Fuck each and every one of you. I don't like certain like other than like when you ask my opinion or when I'm like getting on here to give opinion, I'm
Yeah.
not gonna seek out fucking I don't like Will Ospreay. I'm not gonna go like search on Twitter or Reddit Will Ospreay to go in and go, actually I feel Will Ospreay sucks. Like,
Yes.
you know, now if you ask me my opinion or I'm doing a podcast about pro wrestling and like, oh, hey, here's the Will Ospreay match. Like, I'm not gonna like be like, it's great, you know. I'm
Yeah.
gonna give my legit opinion, but I'm not gonna seek things out. And that's what got me on wrestling was just like you have like all these accounts, and it's not like I said, it would be one thing if it was just like one fucking guy with no followers, you know, just coming to say it's like, all right, fuck off, troll, or fuck you,
Yep.
tribalist, whatever. But these were like people. These were people that Tony Khan follow. These are people that have like that get retweeted by important and like they're make it's like they got their like oh something not AEW is good. Gotta suit up. It's like I am fuck the Fed man. I will go down here and tell you that that is wrong for you to like Cody Rhodes, sir. And
Yeah.
it's not just AEW fans. WWE fans made
Oh, it's both
a
ways.
fucking, you know, anytime AEW had a good show, like, well, you didn't draw money.
Yeah.
Oh, well, you
All
know,
the
like
people
they
that
did
take
this.
pictures of seats at shows of like,
Yeah.
this is really what we need to do. We're
Yeah.
not wrestling yet. Of course, the place isn't full, you idiot.
Yeah. You know, like it's not like WWE, but like it was AEW was built on the premise of we're not going to be like that. And in the last 9 months, it has gone back on that whole premise. And I
Yeah.
remember just like in May, like I'm just like I'm tired of this. Like it's not fun. It's not fun to talk about wrestling anymore. So there's why Just Us Marks is canceled. Everybody, or it could come back. It's never, you know, never say never. You know, the passion could be there, but that's why I don't do it anymore.
No, no, I don't blame you at all.
Everybody's gonna be waiting for this and this, you know, buried in this comic book stuff.
No,
Everybody's gonna be waiting, but that's
dude,
why.
I don't blame you whatsoever. I started watching wrestling a lot after WCW was gone. And like in that weird period where they were still transitioning and figuring out some of what to do with them. And then I like kind of fell out for a while. Just not that I hated wrestling for a while, but you know what kept me into wrestling was the games. And then I didn't like the
Right,
games after like SVR. I can't remember what one it was where they started getting way too realistic for my taste.
right.
And then kind of came back oddly enough, because of AEW, where I'm kind of like, I used to like Cody, and then they're doing a thing. I'm like, I really don't know the Young Bucks, but I've heard them get talked about and whatever. And then that happened, and then it just swirled back into where now I'm like, I occasionally watch WWE, and I do not have enough time in my life to keep up with both of them.
I mean, I still watch Raw, SmackDown, Dynamite. Like that is still destination programming, but like I don't want to talk about it. I just,
Yeah,
hashtag just enjoy wrestling, and I'm
yeah,
trying, and sometimes I'll give in and express frustration with something on social media, and maybe I need to just quit that
no,
altogether
I hear
too.
you.
But I'm not gonna like get on here and talk about it anymore until kind of it changes. And you can all have your opinions, and you can all, I understand why, especially with I very much understand why like people don't want to support WWE anymore. When you have all the stuff that came out on Vince McMahon, like you can feel like you can feel bad about that company, but you know, at the end of the day, there's good people in bad places. There's bad people in good
Yeah.
places. I really just want to watch things that entertain me, and if I gotta have my defenses up because I think Cody Rhodes is a good wrestler, or I got to have my defenses up because I thought The Miz had a good segment,
Yeah.
you know, or I have to have my defenses up because I don't think Roman Reigns is awful. That's not
Yeah.
fun. That's
Yeah.
not fun.
I have the
You know,
Simon Miller approach to it, just in
Simon
general.
Miller is that's I love Simon Miller.
He's the best.
Great guy too. I love Simon Miller.
The best.
Yeah, I've met Simon twice.
Oh,
I
it's one goal. I've never been to a live wrestling event, but I
that
would
needs to
just.
change.
I know. I know.
I will still
Trust.
fully be I am put my full support behind going to wrestling because
Oh,
that's
absolutely. I want to see it in live. I came really close one time back when I was in high school, and then just life got away from me. And now that I'm going to more events like cons and stuff, I'm like, I gotta tick the box once. Yes.
um getting back on our normal topic of discussion. The movie I kind of want to bring up real quick is a movie I think's underrated. Like it was big when it came out, and
Okay.
people were talking about it. Um, but we have I don't feel like it's talked about enough, and that's Logan.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree.
Like
With
that
you.
was such a beautiful movie, and just it was written so well. And I mean, pro wrestling comparison again, like, well, Hugh Jackman didn't stay retired,
Yes.
you know, till he's
Never say never.
90, till
The
he's
old Terry Funk.
90.
Yes. The
Yes.
Terry Funk.
But, like when that movie happened, and you hear like the stories of uh, how Hugh Jackman was like, he loved the character, but he was kind of tired of it. And he
Hmm.
was going to give it one big send off, and he died, the way the whole, it was just beautifully written, beautifully executed. It was an odyssey.
Hmm.
And I loved that movie so much. And like, it's a movie that was popular for like 3 months, and then you don't hear it talked about. And I don't understand why. I mean, everybody's got their own tastes and their own ideas, but it's just like, even in like the nerdy circles, it's not like I don't hear anybody talk about it. And I'm like, why?
Do you know what
Why?
brought it back into people talking about it, which is really dumb? Deadpool and Wolverine.
Yeah.
That's what made them start talking about it again. No, this movie I've never talked about in like 4 years. It's important to me again. I'm like, what are we doing?
um,
But yeah, it's one thing, that movie is good, but I will tell you one thing that, and this is something that as we talk more, you're going to find that I'm an absolute sucker for. I, at some point, want to become a father. I've really badly wanted to have a daughter at some point in my
yeah.
life. That Daphne Keene and that last scene in that movie
Oh.
kills me.
Mm-hmm.
Kills me. She was
Mm-hmm.
so good. And then, like, just enough to going back on later on to when they spoiled it in a trailer. And I'm like, okay, you're showing that she's in the movie. The obvious ones there, so that means the other unobvious ones are going to come later, and you're saving those, which was fine. I was all right afterwards, but yeah, the like showing parts where he actually has to physically pull the blades out because he hasn't used them in so long, and like the adamantium poisoning, and just having it be such a smaller case study X-Men film, which is something you
Yes.
don't ever get. is awesome. Like even the Wolverine was kind of a case study in certain shit with him, but this was like it was
That's
him.
another. I didn't like it as much as Logan, but the Wolverine don't get talked like I every
No, they get
the
shit on, and I
the
don't get it.
I don't get that one either. That's messed up. I mean, like I get how X-Men Origins Wolverine, like it was fun. I liked it, but like I get like okay, this is gonna. I see why some people are gonna roast it a bit. I
Yes.
get like I don't like fully agree. Like I don't think it's as bad as what you're saying when you roast it, but I get why you roasted that movie. But the Wolverine wasn't nearly as bad as that. And neither was Logan, and Logan was even better, but it's like no one wants to talk about him. It's just like, is it a stigma? I don't know what it is.
I don't know. I kind of just think there was like cool. I think they just remember that it was a send off, and like that was it. And then they're like, Fox is dead, and they don't talk about anything else anymore. But like, you don't remember the really heartwarming scene with Charles in the bedroom before you realize that's not Logan he's talking to, or like the
Right.
family dinner. The actually looking into the details of like how the mutant cure was distributed was through food products and little freaking details of the movies and stuff that they don't talk about, or like how they like some people think that Charles accidentally killed a bunch of mutants because he has to keep them in isolation, otherwise bad shit happens. There's a whole lot of just ifs and other cool details that are just dropped in the movie that no one likes to talk about. They're like, yeah, Wolverine killed people and he died. I'm like, no, a lot more happens in that movie.
Right. Like I cried in the theater when they had the trailer and they used the I'm a sucker for using Johnny Cash hurt and
Yeah.
like something. It's just like okay, well
It's
you've
one of
already
the best applications. Like,
oh
it's
yeah.
such a good. When you redo a song and the original band goes, nah, bro, it's yours. Like, you know
Yeah.
you did it good.
Right. You know, and my first real exposure going back to wrestling was like seeing that like in the tribute for Eddie Guerrero. So
Oh,
so like anytime I hear like and then I like that's like all right, I've heard the song, but like that was kind of like my first like wow, okay. And then I
yeah.
saw the video and it's like anytime like you can really like use that unironically and it works so well, I'm just like, all right, we've already got me in the feels using hurt. And then now you're putting it in the end of Hugh Jackman's run as Wolverine. I feel like, I get like now maybe it's going to lose some luster because, again, until he's 90, but, but like, what that movie came out in 2017. It's 2024 now, that was a long time to talk about this movie before like you would have an excuse.
Yep.
Why? I don't understand.
And it was not like it was barely talked about either. It was talked about by everyone for that short amount of time, and then it died.
you know, and there's so many other movies like when it was, again, we talk about Dark Knight. There's how many in the MCU still get talked about? You
Yeah.
know, all of
Like,
that.
oh yeah, there's ones on my list I'm going to bring up that are still talked about a lot that shock me that it's talked about more than this.
Yeah, but it's like even in the nerdy circles. That's what got me is like it lost favor in the nerdy circles.
Mm-hmm.
Or,
Yeah.
or maybe lost favor is not the right word, but like it's just you would think this section would be, excuse me, shouting its praises from the mountaintops, like we do Dark Knight, like we do, you know, well, another movie that if we have time, we'll talk about later. But it doesn't. It's like,
Do you think that it's maybe because there's not as many The Dark Knight has a bunch of like you could not go into a hot topic for 16 years after that and not see a Why So Serious shirt.
I
Logan
I
Logan
didn't think
really
about
never
I
Logan
didn't
never
think
really
about
had
that.
any of that.
Yeah, it wasn't didn't have the marketability. It didn't have like a phrase. It didn't have like a one scene where you're like walking out of there. It didn't have like I'm gonna make the pen disappear. Or the
Yeah.
Joker in a woman's nurse costume walking
Yeah.
out and like as the hospital's exploding and then when it doesn't explode he hits the train. It doesn't have
Yes.
that sort of like moment. It
Yeah.
really and it's a depressing show. Like I can also get that like it is very depressing.
Yeah.
But again, this is the geeks. This is the artsy fartsy people. And they're not even talking about it. And it's like for me, it's like if we had to rank them, it would be number two. And I don't, you know, it's I don't know. I don't know. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't know what to tell you on that. And like I said, the shocking part of it bringing up when all of a sudden it's defending this movie once, another one that's going to bring him up even. And like even it made me laugh when they're like, "We're not going to degrade Logan. That movie's fine." 5 minutes into the movie, he's desecrating his skeleton.
Yeah.
but like when you have this and it's this good send off, I think it's just people that was in the era where they were figuring out that Fox was just bleh. And it was very apparent that even though it wasn't I don't know remember when the deal with Disney got announced, because you had Deadpool 2 come after that.
Yes.
And then you had Dark Phoenix, and then
and there's a lot of these I didn't see because like I got burnt out on comic movies like that.
Yeah, but then it was like New Mutants. I think it was there was something that happened in Dark Phoenix that broke my mind on Magneto for the rest of time, and I cannot believe I didn't see this in a comic book thing until that ass bag of a movie. There's a scene in it where this I've seen and stuff because it's horror shows, but like Jean has Magneto and Charles in like this mansion thing before they have this really cool fight on a train, which is genuinely a really cool part of the movie. And she's making Charles walk up the steps using her powers, and it's intimidating as shit. And then eventually at one point they're like, Jean, you can't affect me. And then she looks at him and he's got the helmet on. You can't affect me. And she just takes her powers with the helmet and goes, lifts it off his head and drops it. And then it broke my brain for going, how did it take until 4 years ago that in a comic property we never saw someone just levitate the helmet off of Magneto?
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I can't speak for that because nobody's read or very few people have read every X-Men comic. There was probably like sometime like where they said, "Why don't Jean just do that?" Like something's been done with it, but like a lot of movies nowadays they're like, "Ah, fuck that." Kind of like the new Star Wars, like hyperspace works this way now.
Yeah, like
that could have been like the thing. I'm not saying it is or isn't true. Yeah. It may have broke Magneto. You may very well be right, but I also wouldn't surprise me if in X-Men canon it was said, here's why you don't do that, and now to start new canon, them just go like, your canon means nothing to me now.
It was like, did you ever watch the old Fantastic Four cartoon in the 90s where Reed Richards broke him because he made the gun out of wood, and didn't know it's made out of wood? He's like, I lost my powers, I can't move that gun. But I think it was part of, as much as people liked it, it was getting to the point where, unless it was a Deadpool movie, people didn't give a shit anymore about Fox movies. They fumbled the bag so hard. And like, Sony is trying their damnedest to make a universe out of characters they could use, they aren't using. Prowler's right there, and they refuse to use them in a movie because they're dumb. But like X-Men, you could have made 14 trilogies before you started running out of options.
Yeah. But again, I'm with you, and then that is an excellent point. But again, it's like, in the casual comic people, circle, I get it. But we're supposed to be like well, we don't like Fox, but it's like, fucking...
We still like those.
Like we still like those, or at the very least, like, somebody knows a torrent, watch it for free, and then roast it. Yes. But no one wanted to people went. Let's say people went to see this movie. People talked about this movie. It had a run of being talked about, but like, I don't understand what didn't where the roots didn't take to at least it stay in the lexicon.
Yeah, I think it's that part of it. Maybe it'd be the fact that it was a weird to finally have something that ended recently. Right. And maybe they were just kind of like, cool, I don't know if it's, you don't talk about it as much because you weren't waiting on the next thing, which that doesn't apply because people still talk about the Dark Knight, but I don't know if that was
people still talk about the Avengers.
Yeah, I don't know if that was the effect at that time where they're like, okay, that's all just kind of done. We're going to get other things, but yeah, I don't know. It was weird that it died off so quick. And not in the theaters, obviously, because it made an assload of money, but... yeah, and the talking points wise, it was weird. I don't remember what movies came out after that. That maybe that was part of what
Well, Wonder Woman that was 2017, so we had Wonder Woman, um, Guardians 2,
Guardians too. Yeah. Um.
you know,
Yeah. So that could have been
two,
part
two,
of it
two
too.
other, really good movies. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
um, real quick, I think we got time for maybe two more. I'll let you pick one, and then we'll go into one that I was alluding to earlier, and then
Okay.
we'll wrap this up. This is a topic. This is something we can come back to. Under this format, we can come back to this at any time.
We
So if
can.
you
Yeah.
enjoy this sort of thing with comic book movies from the past, let us know, and we will come back and talk about
Yes.
more that we liked
Yes.
on another date.
Yes, absolutely. Now, you mentioned one, which I'll go back to another time because I would want to spend more time on that, and that was Guardians 2. But what I'm going to bring up, and I found out that I was way more high on it than other people, which shocked the shit out of me, is No Way Home.
That was actually one I wanted to bring that one up at some point. So that's not the one I was alluding to, but
No,
this was one I do want to talk
but
about.
like
Yes, at some point.
you as a person who read comic books,
Yeah.
at the end, we're gonna go through the rest of the movie, but the most impressive thing about that movie is they did the ass bag one more day storyline, but good.
Yes.
I couldn't believe it when I was watching the end of that movie. I'm like, you bastards are doing this again, and how are you making me like it this time?
Yep.
It
It's
was,
the
and
one. It's a rare instance where um, the movie did something better than a comic. Because
yeah,
usually, I'm a comic guy, so there's a lot of times where I do go, that was good, but in the comic, I
yes,
sometimes I don't downplay the movie, but I can be that guy like that was really good, but the book, you
yeah,
know.
and it's
But
you just
you're right, they did. And I
and
have
you
my
had
own problems with MCU Spider-Man. I'm not the world's biggest fan of those
do you not
movies,
like
but
the Tony
this
Starkism of stuff with it?
I don't like the Tony Starkism. I don't like essentially the again. Maybe I am being a hipster to a certain extent, but like I don't like how you don't have like Harry's not Harry. I do like kind of all it takes is like 10 seconds. Like I messed up. Uncle Ben died. Or
Yeah,
Ben. You don't even have to make him. If you want to put a new spin, he's Ben. He was your parents. Those were your parents' friends.
yeah,
Ben
yeah,
died. But you don't have Mary Jane. You don't have Gwen. You don't have Harry. You don't have. You have Flash, but like he's a nerd. I mean,
yeah.
he's a
But
dickhead, but
I
like
will
no, Flash is
openly
not a nerd. Flash is a fucking obnoxious jock.
I will admit, I don't have as many problems with it as most people. I do get the Tony Starkism thing. I will admit the
And
one thing I'm
and
kind
I
of
don't
like,
like Iron Man like as a character that much. Like I love I appreciate Robert Downey Jr. I appreciate his role, but I'm not a big Iron Man guy.
yeah,
So, but I am a Spider Man guy. So Spider Man turning into like Iron Man Jr. is just like, yeah,
which I appreciate how they did that now that No Way Home is out, because that felt like a beginner thing that's going to cause turmoil, but now we're actually just going to have broke ass Peter Parker in an apartment that no one knows who he is. Which I'm okay with us having that now.
there
Yeah,
there
there's some
there there is a sense of let it play out, but
yeah, there was moments in this where fan service can be fan service, but this was the one where like you actually had a plot reason for these characters to be here outside of just
yes,
hey, I'm swinging by. Like getting to when this trailer came out and they're like, hey, we're bringing some people back from these other movies. It's not going to be those guys, even though there's a shot of them backstage on the freaking Statue of Liberty. But when this movie came out, there was like, you're bringing these back to do certain things. And I was in that theater. I have the best theater owner on the planet. I was going to be going out of town on vacation, so there's going to be like 4 days before I was going to be able to see this movie, and I would have got the shit spoiled out of it. So then I
right.
was seeing another movie the previous week, and he goes, "You're not going to see it for like a week?" I'm like, no. Now keep in mind, I live in a town of like 3,000 people, so like he knows
I can
people.
relate to that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So then all of a sudden he goes, "What?" He messages me on Facebook afterwards, like, "When do you get off work?" Like at 3:30. Why? He goes, "Well, how early could you get off? Because you're leaving town at like 4, right?" I'm like, "Yeah." It's like, see if you can get off of work at like noon. So then I got to go into the theater by myself only me and like 2 workers, and they were all working me, and the only one getting to watch No Way Home in a theater by myself.
Nice.
It was amazing, and I was losing my shit. But like when this started, like, okay, you're gonna bring Toby and Andrew back. There's no point if you don't do certain things in this film. And getting to see Andrew save their version of MJ, I'm like, thank you. Thank you, God. We got to see, and actually seeing him upset and her not understanding why he's so wrecked about it, that was really good. And like the little moments where he's like trying to do better, and Ak is like himself again, happy to see Peter as like a grown functioning adult. You
Yeah.
don't get to see shit like that, and everyone's like, oh, his fan service is like, cool. Have you read a Spider-Man comic in the past 30 years?
Yep.
This shit happens legitimately all the time now, since the
Yep.
Spider Totem and all this Red Weave of Fate shit has happened. And you got to have moments where, give or take, it wasn't Uncle Ben saying it to him, but the moment with the responsibility talk where I didn't know, now that I look back on it, how it was actually said to him, the slight wording was different.
Yeah. Uncle Ben
it.
never actually said that in the comic book. I will give it that much, but come on, give me some origin in the
Yeah.
MCU. But go on, that brief
Yeah.
tangent aside.
Yeah, and like having him have some problems. And now I had a person bring up an argument about this film that to me is the most dog water stupid breakdown of you just don't like MCU films. And this is what I'm friends with this person, but they hate MCU films with a passion, and they like basically suckling on the teat of, well, he said they're not real cinema, so but he said the entire point of the film was magic versus science. Tell me the one time they bring up magic versus science in that film.
I don't recall. I've only seen it twice.
There's a point where they're fighting in the mirror dimension, and he figures out that and he's like, what's better than science, math? They bring that up one time. And then I heard a bunch of people complain about how it's sad. I'm like, no, the point of this movie, he went to him hoping magic would fix his problems because science can't. How does he fix the whole problem at the end of the movie? Magic, because science can't. He's fully okay with accepting that magic is the only way to fix his problems. This was the first movie in a while for Spider-Man where the core crux of it was how responsible is Peter to his villains. Strange was just going to throw him back, and he went, we can help them before they go. Like, responsibility. The main crux of what this character's built off of. He's like, no, you're not responsible for helping them. They can go suffer over there. No, I'm a hero. This is what I should be doing. I love that they made that a giant crux of a Spider-Man film, finally.
Finally.
Now that there wasn't stuff like that with, like, when Toby accidentally killing, or not accidentally killing, moving out of the way so that like Norman died,
right?
And he had to shoulder the responsibility of those moments. But like them talking to him and going, you can't hold on to this shit, dude, you need to be a hero, and them like counseling him about like what can happen if Spider-Man goes wrong. That's another thing you don't get to see. Like Andrew Garfield's talking about how he stopped pulling his punches. You don't get to have that talk much with Spider-Man, because people like to forget in these movies that like my cousin was talking about an amazing in the first Spider-Man where he's like hoisting up, or in the first MCU Spider-Man where he's hoisting up that building on his shoulders, recreating that famous comic book panel.
And
he's like, they didn't have that stuff in the other movies. I'm like, are you forgetting when Tobey Maguire's holding up the entire side of a building when he's trying to save Ock and MJ? Like, are we just forgetting this stuff happens? Like, Spider-Man's scary. I can't remember what run it was, but there's one point where Spider-Man goes to, and I want to say it's in Ultimates after his address gets leaked, and like and Aunt May almost dies and goes to the hospital because they sent an assassin after him. He goes and beats Wilson Fisk half to death just to tell him to go, I could kill you, but I'm not, because I'm a hero. You do this again and I'm gonna finish it, and then goes away to just show you how actually scary he would be if he wasn't Peter Parker.
Right.
And I like seeing that all in one cohesive thing where at the end he's like, I am a hero. I am better off in this instance for me if I let those people live their lives and I just go off. That was a very Peter Parker thing to do. He's known as Marvel's punching bag for a reason. It's impossible for him to have a life, and Marvel creators have openly said people aren't going to read his comics if him and MJ get married and stay married. Tell me you don't know how to write a happy marriage without telling me.
I'd say I think I'd like a lot of his comics where him and MJ were married. So
it's like, oh yeah, but yeah, I just loved that they explored all that and trying to mold him finally into out of the stuff that most people don't like about him in the MCU, where he had all this, to finally now be the broke in a 5 square bedroom apartment. Yep. And now he's got all this to build off of, and no one knows who he is. It's really cool.
When you put it that way, it does make the MCU Spider-Man seem better in retrospect, but still, it's kind of like, I don't want to go back and rewatch the previous. Like, I'll go back and rewatch that one, no problem, but I don't want to go back and rewatch Spider-Man Homecoming. Yeah, and I love Michael Keaton, and I love Michael Keaton in that movie. But
he was good as the Vulture. That scene in the car where he's like, I will kill you and all of your family. I'm just like, yeah. Oh my god. Yeah. But like, yeah, it was really cool to see Keaton be someone else. But like, I get everyone's issues with that. I get it 100%. I don't hurt it as much, but I will agree with everyone that is the worst version of Flash that we've ever got.
Yeah.
100%. But yeah, it's just, all of it was fantastic, and they were nice enough to just cut it clean. No big giant whatever. It was just him swinging off in a brand new, totally Spider-Man looking suit to go just be your neighbor in Spider-Man, where he's listed on a police scanner. It was really nice.
Last one we'll talk about real quick.
All right. What do you got?
I really want to talk about Winter Soldier.
Okay,
because
I'm
to me,
for that.
Because like I said, that's probably, I brought up my top 3. Dark Knight, Logan. If we were to rank them, Dark Knight, Logan, and now Winter Soldier.
Mine more. We talked off camera. I'm really bad at putting numbers to them. I could get the 10, but I could probably nail the top 3 if I thought.
The top 3 I can name. The rest of them are kind of fluid. Yeah. But like, I love this one so much. One, because it was very close. Like, it was pretty close to the comic book. I'm not gonna say it was perfect, but there's a lot of stuff from when they brought Winter Soldier into the Marvel Universe, when they brought Bucky back in as the Winter Soldier. You go back and read the Ed Brubaker comic book, like, there's a lot of like, hey, you can even stay comic book accurate and make a great movie out of it. But the things that I really liked about it is it was a superhero movie. It felt like a superhero movie, but it also didn't. It felt like a government espionage spy thriller.
Yeah.
But didn't, but was still a superhero movie. So it's like one of those, if you could show that movie to somebody like, I'm not big into superheroes. It's like, well, do you like James Bond? Yeah. Watch Jason Winter Soldier. You like Jason Bourne? Do you like, my mind's blanking, but did you get what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly. Like any of the Jack Ryan movies.
Yes.
Yeah, like stuff like that. It feels enough where, and that's where the sweet spot hit in phase 2 for me, where they started going, okay, this film is a Captain America film, but it's a blank. This one is a thing, and it's got like not just a comic book movie like we talked about earlier. They're like, I kind of like to write a spy thriller with Captain America. Cool. I'm going to search in the comics a bit. That guy would work. That guy would work. That guy would work. That guy would work. Then we write the plot there, not get the characters and then figure out how you can smash them in a goulash until it goes. This felt like they had the story and then fit characters into it. This also fixes something that is my biggest complaint, mostly about comic book movies. Hey, how many villains were in The Winter Soldier? Like 6?
Yeah.
I mean, everyone bitches about Spider-Man 3 being bad because there was too many villains. Now, is it too many villains, or was that movie written very badly?
Exactly.
Winter Soldier had 6 villains in it. The first Guardians had like 9, but they were written well.
It can be done. If you're not going to write it well, then it feels like you're doing too much. Exactly.
Yes.
Something else I want to bring up, about that movie that I really liked. And I wasn't the biggest fan of it. I watched it because, it was kind of like when having weekly television shows about superheroes or comic-related things were, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., yes. I didn't watch the show. I did watch the show. I didn't love it. It wasn't on Flash and Arrow and all their level.
Yeah.
But I still watch it because I'm like, well, it's a Marvel show on television, enjoy it, because you were there when that was, you were a nerd when that shit wasn't around.
Yeah, exactly. It was
Um,
hard to come by.
so I watched it, and the thing that I really liked was how when that movie came out, the show weaved it in.
Yep.
It was like reading a comic book, and you're like, okay, I'm reading Captain America comic book, and I'm also reading the X-Men comic book, or anything.
Yeah.
And then it's like, oh, the status quo just changed in Captain America that would have far-reaching effects on the entire MCU, and then you read that and you're like, okay, and then you pick up X-Men, and it's like, oh, well, now the story's taking a turn because it's weaving in with big changes in Captain America.
Yeah.
It made for a cohesive universe, which is great.
Yes.
Sometimes in comic books you can't always do that. You can't always,
No.
Sometimes certain things have to be like, well, this took place at a different time, and then this will come in later, and whatever. But like that was like
the same character happening at the
yeah,
same time.
yes. But then like in this case, it was like when you were reading and you're like, oh, the reason things are changing with the X-Men is because look at what just went down with Captain America, or look what just went down with the Avengers. So now the X-Men have to change too. Mm-hmm. And I thought that was like that to me was one of the best parts of that movie, other than just being a really great movie in general.
Yeah, and like they have the thing that movies don't do a whole lot, and I'm gonna say the best version of this was ever done in John Wick. Accurately making someone seem like a scary motherfucker before they're ever shown just with words. And like Natasha showing that she's got a bullet wound because she barely escaped them, and like he's this big KGB thing that they barely know what's going on, and it's you actually make the person seem intimidating before they're on screen. Now we got him a lot earlier on screen, but there still was like, then you're like, who the fuck is this dude? And they're telling you through words how scary he is, and then they back it up accurately with their actions. A lot of it is just, we're going to show you this guy, and you have to feel he is intimidating. I'm like, if I can be so scared of someone that I actively avoid them just from words, that's hard to accomplish. And just, you couldn't have asked for two better people to play Bucky and Steve.
Oh, yeah.
Like, they do not talk enough about, like, everybody likes to glaze on Robert Downey Jr. He did a good job. My favorite person they have the original six in the MCU always has been and never will change. It's Chris Evans as Captain America. He does not
define that character.
Yeah,
like as much as RDJ defined Iron Man, he defined Captain America.
Yeah, he had that proper way to deal with it, and it was a character that denied the role like 4 times because he didn't want to commit to it, and then they just knew he was going to be the right dude. And in that, and they have certain moments where like you lightly introduced Falcon, just softly through natural stuff.
Yep.
And like the simple stuff where it's like fan service also, but it makes the movie in that moment cooler when he's like, if you're gonna go to war, you have to wear a uniform, and he goes and gets his original thing from the Avengers Museum. Like, you can weave those in naturally without making it feel like a groan-inducing moment for people that aren't comic book readers. That's really good. I've never heard anyone complain about that.
Right.
It's just so good. And the fight scene when they're on the street.
Yep.
Oh, so good. All of it was fantastic. And it makes you feel intimidated again. Did he just drive it? Did he have a parachute? No.
Like that. And it's one of those things again, like I'm not ashamed of liking comic books for being comic books, but that was something else that to me legitimized comic books. Like, comic books can be espionage thrillers. Captain America can be an agent in, like Jason Bourne, like James Bond, at least in terms of the action. Just like Batman can be like a serious character like that. It legitimized the art form more. And I like that. Not that I feel it needs legitimized to people that are, not gatekeeping, but like, I don't need
it makes you kind of feel vindicated.
Yes. Like, I don't need everyone to like comic books for me to love comic books and to appreciate it and know what it is. But whenever something can make other people who, didn't go to comic shops, who don't have, I know this is a wrestling side of the thing, but like who don't have a shit ton of stuff hanging up in their house about comics,
Yeah.
When it can make that be like, oh, I get why this is up now because there's Captain America, Hey, I get it. There's Batman. I get it.
Yeah.
When it can do something like that, you feel like,
Yeah.
win.
Absolutely. And like another thing that film did, and I think it does better than most of the films, like some of the Spider-Man films do it pretty well in the MCU. This one really made me feel like characters are just living at times in the MCU. They're not always doing whatever. Like the dialogue of the little itty bitty talks of like Natalia trying to set him up with Natasha. He's like, what about blank in accounting? And he's like, I got the nose ring. I'm not sure. But like little actual conversations human beings would have. We
Right.
don't have them that often. A lot of people like to complain in the MCU about how it's snark offs all the time. I
And
don't
it
think it's
can
that
be.
bad.
I kind of see that sometimes, yeah.
But I can definitely see it to a degree. I don't think it's as bad as what people say, but it's there. We don't have as many simple conversations about. He's like, well, add what was the Bob Marley album? I think he tells him
Yeah.
to, like the running, or he calls him Running Man. Or they're just doing laps around they
Yeah.
don't have stuff like that normally. It's always we're doing something or we're on like another air base or something. It was really nice to have the thing feel lived in, which is what I didn't watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., but was probably something you got out of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. regularly.
Eh.
Oh, maybe not. Okay, whatever.
I mean,
But
like you're not off base, but like it
but
wasn't, like you had some of that, but it also like I'm a bad person to ask about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. because like once I got to the point where like we had like an influx of all those sorts of shows, I'm like, I really don't need to watch Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
anymore.
It was it's one of those things where someone pointed it out to me and I kind of got why some people fell off of it. Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. would talk about the movies, but the movies would never talk about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D.
Yep.
They were like, it's connected.
It was definitely Little Brother. Yes.
Yeah. Yep.
Uh,
And
but
there is a problem you can get with that to where if you do too much in the show, you have to affect a movie that's taken 1.5 years to get made.
True, but like you could have had one thing like like oh, I Agent Ward, oh hey, we're changing this new measure because Agent Ward went rogue or something. Something like just a little. I know, like that's just a little nugget of something that you could have done.
They did it better in the Arrowverse.
Yeah,
yeah,
absolutely.
They had more options of like actual writers being in a room at all times or stuff like that. But not to say that the Arrowverse didn't have problems in that regard because it did. It did.
I'll still take the Arrowverse over.
Yeah.
That any day and twice on Sundays.
Yeah.
Feel like that's a good jumping off point. I mean, there's plenty of movies to talk about. If you want to hear us talk about more movies, I mean, there's probably plenty on our list that we did not get to.
Oh, yeah.
But if you want to hear more about it, let us know, and we will definitely come back to that at a later date. We want to thank you all for tuning in and listen to the rebirth, the retcon, the reboot, the New 52 version, the Marvel Now version.
Some people might take that the wrong way with New 52. Hold on, it's good, I promise.
I like the New 52.
I know, but a lot of people didn't.
I know a lot of people didn't, but Marvel Now, everybody likes Marvel Now. The Marvel Now of this podcast, but thank you all for tuning in. If you enjoyed, please like, share, and subscribe.
Yes.
Follow me on my social media pages, even though I'm kind of not as active on there because toxicity. That's it. That classic System of a Down song. It plays too much. No. But follow me on facebook.com/athleticgeek89 and on Twitter, X. I don't know. I don't like it. And now there's a Blue Sky, but I haven't gone to that yet. I don't know.
It's a different type of algorithm. It's not bad. But I don't blame you for being on either. Trust me. I only use it to get topics for the other podcasts that I do on my channel.
Yeah, it's at athletic_geek89 on Twitter, whatever. I don't know. Just follow me there. Subscribe, and Instagram at athletic_geek89. Instagram's fun. We don't really have any problems on Instagram, so just go to Instagram. Fun pictures and comments. Cool. And social media, if you please.
Yes, I think I have damn near everything nailed down to the floor social media wise, but the ones that I use the most are Instagram if you're into cosplaying in the cons that I've been going to more recently. That's that. If you're a Devil May Cry fan, I cosplay Nero and Virgil almost every con that I go to.
And it's Organoid Zero on Instagram, correct?
Yes, Organoid Zero on everything. I've pretty much got it nailed. It's capital O, capital Z, and most sometimes on Twitter, not often. It's mostly just sharing my Twitch links. Which, if you like movie reviews and a podcast on Organoid Zero on YouTube, we go live with everything that I do over on my Twitch channel, which is mostly gaming, but that's where the podcast is live as well. Again, Organoid Zero on Twitch.
And also, if you follow me on Twitter, you're mainly just going to hear me talk about NASCAR because that's like the one place where I can talk about NASCAR and IndyCar. So, all right. So for Organoid Zero, I am the Athletic Geek. Thank you all for tuning in. We'll see you next time.